The shotgun blast echoed through the hollows of Harlan County, Kentucky, like God's own thunderclap, shattering the fragile peace of a November dawn. Jordan's father slumped against the splintered barn door, his calloused hands clutching a crumpled letter from the bank. Foreclosure notice, the final nail in their poverty-stricken coffin. "Boy," he rasped, blood bubbling from his lips as he fixed Jordan with eyes wild as a cornered coyote. "You fix this. You marry that girl from the mill, or we all end up in the holler with the ghosts." Jordan froze in the mud-churned yard, the cold bite of the air slicing through his threadbare jacket, his heart hammering a rhythm of terror and something deeper, something he'd buried under layers of denial since he was 14 and realized the way his gaze lingered too long on the quarterback's sweat-slicked neck during Friday night lights. The weight of it all crashed down then, their trailer teetering on unpaid bills, Mama's cough worsening from the coal dust that never quite left her lungs, his little sister Ellie dreaming of college while scraping plates at the diner. He nodded, swallowing the bile rising in his throat, because what choice did a soft-hearted queer kid from the wrong side of the tracks have but to play the part they scripted for him? That nod sealed the first fracture in Jordan's soul, a crack that would spiderweb through the years like the frost on their single-pane windows. He was 19, fresh out of high school with a GED and a backpack full of half-formed poetry scribbled on napkins, dreams of escaping to the neon haze of Nashville or the salty freedom of San Francisco. But dreams were luxuries for folks with full bellies and empty debts. So he did what poor white trash boys did in Harlan. He courted Jenny Hargrove, the mill foreman's daughter with her peroxide curls and laugh like wind chimes in a tornado. She was kind enough in that desperate, clinging way her own family one lay off from the streets. Their first date was at the drive-in, sharing a bucket of greasy popcorn under the flickering screen of some rom-com where the hero always got the girl and the sunset. Jordan forced smiles, held her hand without flinching, even let her kiss him under the stars, tasting like cherry chapstick and regret. But at night, alone in his room with the walls paper-thin, he'd press his face into the pillow and whisper apologies to the boy in his dreams, the one with sun-kissed skin and a grin that promised worlds beyond the mountains. He wrote letters he never sent, verses about stolen glances and the ache of pretending, stuffing them into an old shoebox under his bed. "You're doing this for us?" He'd tell his reflection in the cracked bathroom mirror, tracing the faint stubble on his jaw that never quite filled in right. But the lie tasted like ash, and every time Jenny's fingers brushed his, he felt the pull of the tide dragging him under. By spring, the wedding was set, a shotgun affair in the county courthouse, with Mama's quilt as the runner and Ellie's wildflowers in mason jars. The bank gave them a stay, the foreman pulling strings because his girl was happy, and for a fleeting moment, Jordan thought maybe he could build a life on borrowed normalcy. Jenny moved into the trailer, her laughter a bomb against the creaks and groans of the roof threatening to cave. She talked about babies, a boy to carry on the name, and Jordan nodded, his mind wandering to the way the light caught the curve of a stranger's neck at the gas station that morning. He worked double shifts at the mine entrance, hauling gear for men twice his age who slapped his back and called him son-in-law, their eyes appraising him like livestock at auction. One evening, after a shift that left his back screaming and his lungs coated in black dust, Jordan slipped away to the creek behind the trailer park. The water ran lazy and brown, carrying secrets downstream to the Cumberland River. He stripped to his boxers, the chill raising gooseflesh on his pale skin, and waded in until the current tugged at his thighs. There, under the sycamores shedding their leaves like confetti from a funeral, he let the tears come, hot and furious, mingling with the mud. "I can't," he sobbed to the empty air, fists clenched against the unfairness of it all. Why him? Why this body, this heart that beat wrong for a place that demanded straight lines and iron spines? The poverty wasn't just empty pockets. It was the theft of choice, the way it chained you to survival's altar and demanded blood sacrifices. Jenny found him like that, shivering on the bank, wrapped in his own arms. She didn't ask. She just draped her sweater over his shoulders and sat beside him, her silence a mercy he didn't deserve. "It's okay to be scared," she whispered finally, her voice threading through the dusk like a lifeline. But Jordan knew it wasn't fear of marriage or fatherhood that clawed at him. It was the terror of erasure, of becoming the ghost of himself before he even knew what living true felt like. That night, as they lay side by side in the sagging double bed, her breathing even and trusting, Jordan stared at the ceiling fan's lazy spin and vowed silently, One day, he'd break free. Not for revenge, but for the boy he'd locked away. The one who cried at sunsets and collected sea glass from riverbeds, dreaming of oceans he'd never seen. The months blurred into a rhythm of rote affection. Kisses good morning over instant coffee. Her hand on his knee during church sermons about sin and salvation that made his stomach twist. Ellie, now 16 and sharp as a switchblade, watched him with eyes that saw too much. "You look like a kicked dog, Jordy," she'd say, tossing him a soda from the fridge. "When you gonna stop actin' like this is forever?" He'd ruffle her hair, force a chuckle, but her words lodged like splinters, festering. Then came the layoff. The mine shuttered one Tuesday in July, the air thick with the scent of rain and ruin. Half the town lined up at the unemployment office, faces gaunt under the fluorescent buzz. Jordan's foreman pulled him aside. Jenny's daddy with his tobacco-stained teeth and pitying squint. "You got options, son. My brother in Cincinnati's hirin' at the auto plant. Real union job, benefits. Take the wife, start fresh." It was a lifeline, or so they said. A chance to trade mountains for flatlands, holler twang for Midwest drawl. Jenny lit up like a firefly at the news, packing boxes with dreams of brick houses and PDA meetings. Jordan signed the papers without reading them, his signature a scrawl of resignation. The drive north was a funeral procession in a rusted Ford pickup, Ellie waving from the porch until she was a speck in the rearview, her silhouette forever etched against the sagging trailer. Cincinnati sprawled like a concrete beast, all smokestacks and river barges under a sky bruised purple by industry. They rented a shoebox apartment above a laundromat, the hum of dryers a constant lullaby. Jordan clocked in at the plant, welding frames under sparks that danced like fireflies from hell, his hands blistering, his mind numbing to the grind. Jenny bloomed there, or so it seemed, hair in a neat bob, a job at the library shelving romances that made her sigh. She talked of trying for a baby, her eyes soft with a hope Jordan couldn't mirror. "We'll make it, Jord. You and me against the world." He'd pull her close, bury his face in her neck, and pretend the scent of her lavender soap drowned out the phantom cologne of his fantasies. But at night, when the city lights bled through the blinds, he'd slip out to the fire escape, chain-smoking menthols and staring at the Ohio River's oily gleam. Freedom whispered from across the water, in the distant glow of Kentucky, but chains of debt and duty held him fast. It was on one such night, the air heavy with the promise of autumn rain, that Jordan met Theo. The bar was a dive called the Rusty Anchor, tucked in over the Rhine where the neighborhood scars from riots past mingled with fresh graffiti tags. Jordan had wandered in after a 12-hour shift, nursing a Bud Light and the ache in his shoulders, when the door swung open and let in a gust of cool wind and him. Theo was all lean angles and effortless grace, dark curls cropped close, skin the warm brown of river clay baked under summer sun, eyes like polished obsidian catching the neon flicker. He slid onto the stool next to Jordan's, ordering a whiskey neat with a voice that rolled like distant thunder, low and unhurried. "You look like you could use a real drink," Theo said, nodding at the bottle between them. His smile was a crooked thing, equal parts mischief and melancholy, and Jordan felt it like a hook in his gut, sharp, inevitable. He mumbled something about overtime, the words tumbling clumsy from lips unused to flirtation that wasn't scripted. Theo laughed, a sound like wind through willows, and leaned in. "Overtime's a thief, steals your soul one weld at a time. I'm Theo, by the way, graphic designer, part-time revolutionary." They talked until last call, words flowing easier than the beer, about the plant's soul-crushing monotony, Theo's sketches of protest posters for queer rights marches, the way Cincinnati's underbelly hid pockets of magic if you knew where to look. Jordan confessed fragments. The Holler's ghosts, the weight of a ring on his finger that felt like a shackle. Theo listened without judgment, his gaze steady, and when their knees brushed under the bar, Jordan didn't pull away. It was electric, that touch, a spark that lit the dry tinder of his longing. Walking home through streets slick with rain, Theo's arm slung casual over Jordan's shoulders to steady him, Jordan's pulse thundered. At the corner, under a street lamp's hazy halo, Theo turned, cupping Jordan's jaw with fingers calloused from charcoal and clay. "You're more than what they made you," he murmured, thumb tracing the line of Jordan's lip. Then he kissed him, soft at first, tentative, blooming into something fierce and claiming. Jordan melted into it, hands fisting Theo's jacket, tasting whiskey and want, the world narrowing to the press of bodies and the rain's patter on pavement. Guilt crashed in with the dawn, sour as black coffee. Jenny stirred as he slipped into bed, her sleepy murmur a knife twist. "Missed you," she sighed, curling into him. Jordan held her, whispering lies into her hair, but his mind replayed the kiss in loops, Theo's scent clinging like sin. He told himself it was a one-off, a slip in the dark, but the next week found him back at the rusty anchor, heart leaping when Theo slid onto the stool with that knowing grin. Their affair unfolded in stolen hours, the back booth at the bar turning into a confessional, Theo's apartment, a sanctuary of exposed brick and half-finished canvases where Jordan shed his skin. Theo was a transplant from Atlanta, queer unapologetically, with a laugh that chased shadows and hands that mapped Jordan's body like sacred text. "Your poetry," Theo breathed one night, tracing constellations on Jordan's chest with fingertips dipped in moonlight. All fire and ache, wrapped in quiet. Jordan wept then, silent tears soaking the pillow, because no one had ever seen him so clearly, named the softness he'd armored against the world. But secrets fester in small spaces. Jenny noticed the late nights, the distracted smiles, the way Jordan's eyes drifted to the horizon like he was already gone. "Who's he?" she asked one evening, voice cracking over canned chili, the ring on her finger glinting accusatory. Jordan denied it, the lie bitter on his tongue, but her eyes, God, her eyes, held the hurt of betrayal she'd never earned. "I love you," he said, and part of it was true, the part forged in shared hardship, but it wasn't the love that set his blood singing. The plant offered overtime, golden handcuffs tightening. Jordan welded faster, earned more, sent checks home to Ellie for books and Mama for meds. Theo understood, or said he did, but the distance grew. Missed calls, canceled plans, Jordan's apologies tasting like excuses. "Family first," he'd mutter, but Theo's gaze sharpened, the revolutionary in him scenting the chains Jordan wouldn't name. Winter clamped down on Cincinnati like a vice, snow blanketing the streets in false purity. Ellie called one December night, voice thin over the line. "Mama's bad, Jord. Coughs turned to pneumonia. Come home." He drove south through blizzards. Theo's last text. "Be safe, poet. We ain't done," burning in his pocket like a brand. Harlan was a graveyard of rusted trucks and hollowed faces, the trailer a tomb of medical bills and regret. Mama lay in the hospice bed they'd scraped for, skin translucent as onion skin paper, eyes finding Jordan's with a clarity that pierced. "You did good by us," she whispered, hand frail in his. "But live for you now, baby. Be soft. It's okay." She slipped away at dawn, the room filling with the scent of pine from the wreath Ellie hung crooked on the door. The funeral was a blur of casseroles and condolences. Jenny at his side like a shadow he couldn't shake. She cried for his loss, but her grip on his arm was possessive, a reminder of debts unpaid. Theo drove up unannounced, standing at the back of the graveside with a bouquet of wild asters. His presence a beacon Jordan ached for. They stole moments in the church basement, Theo's arms a harbor, but Ellie caught them, her sharp eyes missing nothing. "You break her heart, you break mine too," she hissed, fierce as a mama bear. Jordan nodded, shame coiling tight, but the pull toward Theo was a riptide he couldn't fight. Back in Cincinnati, the fracture widened. Jenny confronted him with Theo's scarf, forgotten in the truck cab, the wool reeking of sandalwood and smoke. "How long?" she demanded, tears carving tracks through her makeup. Jordan confessed in fragments, the words tumbling like rocks down a ravine. The bar, the kisses, the nights that rewrote his stars. She slapped him, the sting a wake-up, then crumpled, sobbing into his chest. "I thought we were building something real." He moved out that week, crashing on Theo's couch, the apartment a whirlwind of half-packed boxes and unspoken fears. Jenny filed for divorce quietly, her daddy's influence smoothing the papers, but the town whispered. "Faggot." They spat, the word of venom that followed Jordan like exhaust fumes. The plant laid him off in the new year, automation's cold blade, and with it went the fragile stability. Theo held him through the nights of panic attacks, whispering mantras of "you're enough." But doubt crept in, a serpent in their garden. Spring thawed the ice, but not the chill between them. Theo's commissions dried up, freelance gigs turning to dust, and tempers frayed. "You're still running," Theo accused one rainy afternoon, sketchpad slamming shut. "From them, from me. When you gonna stand still?" Jordan lashed out, words like shrapnel. "You don't get it. Poverty don't care about your pride parades." The fight escalated, accusations flying. Theo calling him a coward wrapped in flannel. Jordan hurling Theo's privilege like a grenade. The Atlanta boy with artist parents who'd never known ramen for dinner. Theo walked out, door slamming like a guillotine, leaving Jordan in the echo. Days blurred into weeks of ghosting, Jordan pounding pavement for jobs that ghosted back. Sleeping on Ellie's couch in a sublet that smelled of desperation. He wrote letters again, this time emailing Theo fragments of his heart. Poems of regret and raw want. But the inbox stayed silent, a void that mirrored the one in his chest. Summer scorched the city, humidity thick as grief. Ellie dragged him to a queer open mic at a coffee shop in Northside, her way of pulling him from the pit. "Mama said be soft," she reminded, shoving a mic into his hand. Jordan climbed the stage on shaking legs, the spotlight a confessor, and spilled his truth. The Holler's chains, the forced straitjacket, the love that bloomed bloody and beautiful with Theo. The crowd snapped fingers instead of claps, eyes wet and knowing, and in that moment vulnerability wasn't weakness. It was armor, gleaming. Theo was there, in the back, curls damp with sweat, gaze locked like a lifeline. After, under the shop's awning as thunder grumbled distant, he pulled Jordan into the alley, rain starting to spit. "I was scared too," Theo admitted, voice rough. "Thought you'd choose safe over us." Jordan cupped his face, thumbs brushing tears that weren't rain. "I choose you. The soft parts that shine." They rebuilt slow, like a house after flood, therapy sessions paid in bartered sketches. Job hunts turning to a shared studio space where Jordan welded metal sculptures infused with Theo's designs, jagged hearts blooming into fractals of light. Jenny found tentative peace, remarrying a quiet accountant who made her laugh genuine. Their divorce amicable as these things go. Ellie visited, her college acceptance letter a flag of triumph, and saw in Jordan's easy grin the brother she'd always known was there, just buried. By fall, they loaded a U-Haul bound west, not to escape but to claim. San Francisco's fog-wrapped hills welcomed them with open arms, a gallery spotting Jordan's work at a pop-up, Theo's posters gracing walls from the Castro to the Mission. Poverty's shadow lingered in late-night worries over rent, but it no longer defined them. Jordan stood on their balcony one golden October dusk, Theo's arms around his waist, watching the Bay Bridge glitter like promise. "You built this," Theo murmured into his neck, lips brushing the silver chain that now held a ring, simple, etched with asters. Jordan turned, hazel eyes soft with the shine of being seen. "We did, soft and all." And in that life, where foghorns sang lullabies and rainbows weren't just after storms, Jordan's softness didn't just survive. It blazed, a quiet revolution against the world's hard edges, proving that even the poorest soil could birth stars.